Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit. Today we are joined by Brooke Birkey, who is a law firm growth strategist and the founder of Level Up Law Firm Coaching. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Can we start out? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Level Up Law Firm Coaching?
Absolutely. So the business was born out of a lot of real life experience with working inside of law firms. So I work only with law firms, and I've done every role except attorney. And so I developed a lot of training programs just from understanding exactly what that looks like, what the needs are, and kind of blended emotional intelligence, which I also have training in, with that kind of the hard and the soft skills together, and poof, Level Up Law Firm Business Coaching.
So when clients come to Level Up Law Firm Coaching, what are some of the problems and pain points that they're experiencing in their business that you're helping them solve, helping them resolve, and guiding them through?
So the most common original problem is intake, where we're not getting enough new cases. We don't have our sales team trained. Maybe we don't have sales people in the roles, things like that. And so the first step is to really take a look at that, get everything aligned, get the team trained in sales skills. We have this model called connect, qualify, and sell. So using an emotional intelligence to connect, doing a qualification, and then switching over to sales. And that model works really well. But then from there, you see other issues that crop up because, like one problem in a law firm is just depends on positioning, right? So maybe the position of the problem is over here. You do intake training, now it's over here, right? So there could be interdepartmental alignment issues. There could be case management issues. So we also do emotional intelligence training and coaching for paralegals and case managers. So everybody stays on brand and on message and kind of has that experience. And then we also have a program for management and attorneys. So all the way around the client experience is really how we like to look at it. Is the client experience is in the middle, and then our programs kind of orbit around the client experience.
Well, you mentioned this kind of notion of emotional intelligence. What does that sort of practically look like when it comes to intake and client communications? What does that emotional intelligence look like?
So it's probably not what you think. I know there's a kind of a pop culture definition of emotional intelligence, and it's kind of centered around just let people do what they want or whatever feels good, right? But that couldn't be further than the actual definition of emotional intelligence. It's you take this ability to kind of read somebody. I call them mini FBI agents. I want you to put on your mini FBI agent hat. So to read somebody, to understand based on their communication what they're really looking for, and then meet that need, whether it be through mirroring communication technique or figuring out the chief concern and then highlighting that, or using redirect techniques, whatever it is that person that's coming in with a need. And the emotional need is many times, if not most of the time, up here, and the actual practical need comes after that. So let's say that somebody's coming in and they were just in a horrific car accident. They're feeling disoriented. They're feeling grief. They're feeling like their life has been interrupted. So those are these emotional drivers, primary. Secondary is, how can you manage my case? Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. And I'm curious, when you come to a new firm, when you have a new client and you're first looking at their sort of intake and operations, what are some of the most common sort of revenue leaks that you see?
Well, a lack of a script. So the intake team members, when they're not trained, they tend to follow the lead of the caller. And that is something that can go sideways for so many reasons. Number one, the caller wants you to show that you're confident and in control and that you know where you're going. So it's almost like having a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old is like, I want cookies. If you give the 2-year-old cookies, then the 2-year-old feels satisfied for a minute, but then overall they feel unsafe because they're in control, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with a client. They're obviously not children, but if they're going through a crisis, they're looking for you to be the one who's saying, here's where we're going, even if they're exhibiting controlling behavior or rambling or things like that, right?
Right.
And so it's important to really take a look at what is the motivating behavior behind what somebody's actually looking for.
If a firm thinks it sort of has maybe a lead problem or a problem acquiring leads, what are the signs that it actually has an intake or a follow-up problem instead?
Oh my goodness. Just look under the hood, right? I have so many friends in the marketing business who say, it's so frustrating when we're bringing in leads and the calls are going unanswered. The intake is not selling. They're not doing these follow-up strategy techniques like a date certain follow-up or things like that. So it really doesn't take that look to that much to actually diagnose the problem. It's how often are you missing calls? And then if you listen to a couple of calls, like I would say, listen to a call from each of your team members and see how they handle the call. Are they pre-selling? Are they overcoming objections? Are they going over the agreement in real time? If not, then you probably have a leaky bucket in more ways than one.
Now, you mentioned that you worked previously in several roles inside of a law firm.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how does that kind of firsthand ground floor experience sort of shape and mold the way that you coach other law firm owners today?
I think it's because I can see it from the position of their staff. I've been in that position where you have the client that calls you every day and you may be knee deep in medical records or trying to prepare for trial, and you've got this client that calls every day. And maybe your boss is expecting you to pick up that phone every single time. It's like, well, how do you expect me to get both done?
Right.
The intake specialist, I've been on that side, and I know how difficult callers can be. Sometimes you have really emotional callers, and you don't have the tools or resources to really deal with them without training. So I really can see it from their perspective.
And I'm curious, I'd like to speak a little bit about sort of the origin of Level Up Law Firm Business Coaching. What led you to create the practice, and what gaps did you see in the market? How was it all started?
Yeah, so I was doing intake coaching already in another capacity. And while I was doing intake coaching, I kept seeing over and over that this is really only the beginning. Because like we said earlier in our conversation, it's moving the problem from here. Now the problem's over here, right? So you have to kind of deal with it as it goes. You have that bottleneck. And so I noticed that my clients weren't just needing intake coaching. They were also needing interdepartmental alignment coaching. They were needing coaching for their case managers. And so I started a business that would be able to address all of those things.
And, I'm curious when you're approaching a new client, right? When a client comes to you, is it sort of a one size fits all approach to your coaching? Or is everything that you do kind of highly custom tailored to the needs of that individual client, the needs of that individual firm?
Would you believe that it's both?
Really? I'd love to dive into that. How so?
Yeah. So we have our curriculum-based coaching programs. We have one for intake, one for case management, one for attorneys, and then one for middle managers. So that's standard, more or less. So then we get into the discovery with each client and we customize it. So we take the shell as the overarching program, what we're going to deliver, and then we make tweaks according to what each client needs. And we also have meetings along the way to develop. So we actually have 3 leadership touch point in a 3-month program. So that just means that we're getting together with the decision makers and saying, these are our numbers, this is what we're looking at, this is what we see, this is what we need. And then we further customize it from that. So by the time they graduate, that it's really more of a custom program for their firm.
And you mentioned these sort of internal bottlenecks that can arise. And I'm just kind of curious, what are some signs maybe that a firm's growth has sort of leveled out or plateaued as a result of internal bottlenecks and maybe not necessarily as a result of poor marketing?
Well, the client experience is a great barometer. So if you have people, one of the issues that pops up all the time is that you have intake pursuing the client, like calling them, wanting to get them on board, following up. If they didn't get them on the first sign up, it's kind of like a love bombing, but in a good way, right?
Right.
And then they get the sign up, they pass it off to case management, it's like crickets.
Right.
So the client is here thinking, like, I thought you loved me. I thought you really wanted my business. I was getting all this attention from you. And then it's like, meh.
Right.
So you have to have that structure in place, just thinking about, don't do only what serves the firm. Think about it, what it does for the client experience and how they perceive it. And that's how people lose cases between intake and launching their case.
When it comes to sort of that client intake and client management, what metrics should law firms be tracking? I mean, like, especially if they are a firm that is looking to grow.
Yes. So let's start with number of calls that are coming in. So I see the reception and the intake team as one. So that's how we train, that we have receptionists in the intake, because it's one experience.
Right.
So I want to start off by knowing, how many calls is your receptionist getting? Do they have enough? Do they have the bandwidth to provide a good client experience? And then we move on to the handoff. And so we're looking at intake. We want to know how many leads you're getting, how many qualified leads, and then how many conversions. So those are our big three metrics that we track in addition to that.
Now this might be peeling the cover back a little bit, so, don't hate me. But what are some sort of low cost, high impact changes that law firms could implement, or these changes they could make to their intake process to see improvement, within the week? What is just something very simple that they could implement right this moment?
Yeah, and it's not peeling the curtain back too much, because I have a free offer. I can give this away. A script. So we use what's called a conceptual script. It has the greeting, and then it has the concepts that I want them to master. So it's not like I want you to sound like me when you're picking up the phone. I want you to sound like yourself. So we don't tell them, oh, this is the word you should say, right? But if you hit the concepts like empathy, confidence, buy-in question, contact information, if you hit it in order, that's a great way to bring some structure to your firm. And if you email me, Brooke at leveluplawfirmcoaching.com, I'll send you a sample script.
You want to say that one more time in case anybody didn't pick that up?
Yes, it's a mouthful. Brooke, Brooke at leveluplawfirmcoaching.com.
How can attorneys and sort of their intake staff handle clients that are, say, in situations that are very emotionally charged? They're going through some trauma, they're going through some horrible experience, and emotions are running high. How can attorneys and intake staff sort of deal with those customers, handle those clients in a respectful manner without really experiencing that burnout coming back on them and those emotions affecting them personally?
Yeah, it sounds complex, but it's actually quite simple. I'm gonna give you a tool right now. Okay, are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me something, Adrian. Something that bothered you in the last 7 days. Just give me an idea. Something that
bothered me. We had some car troubles. We had some issues with a car breaking down. That was troubling.
Oh, that's so frustrating. So it sounds like you had some car trouble, and with your car broken, I bet it was hard to get places and interrupted your life, huh?
It was brutal. It was, we had to say goodbye. It was the death of the Mazda.
Oh,
I know.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. So you see what I did there? That's called mirroring. So you told me something that was bothering you, and I mirrored it back to you. I said, oh, It sounds like you're experiencing this.
Right.
And that's really what they're looking for. If you don't do that for them, they will try to get it 5 or 6 times during your call, and your call will go on 2 or 3 minutes longer than it needs to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, what are some common sort of communication mistakes that you see attorneys and intake staff making when it comes to client management? Are there any common mistakes you see?
Oh, yeah. Bypassing empathy cues. So
Mm,
somebody is saying something terrible that happened to them, they just go on to the next question. Okay, got it. Okay, right. So people will actually pause and wait for that empathy, and if you don't give it to them, it's a missed opportunity.
mm,
Similarly, when you're dealing with a rambler or an emotional caller, they periodically will take time, like even a very short breath. Not all of them, but most of them will take a very short breath and wait for your response. And a lot of people just let that go right by, and you lose the opportunity to control the conversation. So what you're supposed to do is go in there and validate and redirect and get back in control of the conversation.
mm.
Otherwise, but you just end up listening to somebody talk about their dogs, sisters, aunt for for 3 minutes straight without any interaction from you.
What are there any? I mean, I'd love to take that kind of same question and focus it internally into the firm. Are there
Yeah.
any communication mistakes that you see that are common, that are mistakes that are causing friction, say, between the intake staff and the attorneys or others involved in the case management? Are there any internal communication mistakes that you see time and time again?
Oh yeah. So there's the common conflict between intake and case management is that intake's job is to cite up cases, and case management's job is to make them, or not make them viable, but to check out the viability. And there can be some overlap there that maybe you signed up a case that wasn't viable, and you're like, why did you sign up that case? So that's a common conflict that can be addressed just by saying, hey, this is my role and this is your role, and they're not the same role. Like they have some competing interests sometimes.
Right.
And so let's just work together for the best of the business to make sure that we're providing a holistic experience.
Mm.
Right? Another one is taking the time to think through all of the people who need a communication before sending it.
Mm.
So we don't want to over inbox people, but I see a lot of communication frustration come because you only sent it to one person and it's not delineated who's supposed to really X factor the communication. So
Right.
if it's something one person needs to know and somebody else needs to know and they don't know, then that can create some friction.
Now, this might be a really silly question, so I apologize if it is, but I could see this being the case, so it might be the case. I don't know. Do you ever receive sort of pushback? I could see, older attorneys saying, I've been operating this same way for 30 years. And do you ever receive any kind of pushback from attorneys who are unwilling to change or adopt new strategies?
Sure. Yes, of course. And staff members too. Typically, this is the most apparent when the law firm already has a fair amount of success, and it's like, why should I make these adjustments when I'm already successful?
Right.
And so what you have to do is kind of peel back and then vision cast ahead of the training program, so that you're not pushing against that mentality.
Mm.
And you have to do a little bit of vision catching. Whoever you're working with,
Right.
if they haven't caught the vision yet, you're not going to get very far.
At what stage of growth should law firms consider bringing in a coach such as yourself? When do they know it's time to reach out to someone for some external help?
Well, I say I've worked with a solo practitioner in the last year, and I've worked with a law firm that was, I don't know, 100 people, 200. I don't know exactly,
Right.
but the discrepancy is big, right?
Right.
So the reality is that if you can afford it, then it's a good move, no matter where you are.
Right.
If you're losing something and there's something out there that can fix it and you can afford it, then go for it.
And now this is gonna be a big question here. So I apologize, but get ready. This is a big one. What role does automation play in the intake process, and how is that sort of balanced with the real human connection involved in case management? What is the interplay between automation and human interaction?
So my general rule of thumb is that automations are fantastic if they're adding to the client experience.
Mm.
If they're taking away from the client experience, then you kind of rethink it.
Right.
So it's different for every firm, but for example, AI, when people interact with AI, their part of their brain kind of switches off because they know they're talking to a robot.
Right. Right.
So if let's say that your first intake, setup is AI, you're running the risk that people are going to turn their brains off to your firm if that's their first
Right.
interaction. So taking all of that together, I think every firm has to be really strategic. Where am I going to use automations? Where am I going to use live interactions? And where am I going to use AI? Really think through all the aspects of it before making a decision. This is not like one of those things where you just check a box and you're like, okay, we're just going to do this because
Right.
it's the most expedient.
Right. If a firm really wants to you mentioned, that client experience.
Mhm.
If a firm really wants to improve client experience, say today, is there something that they could implement to really just improve it right off the bat? Or is there a really common mistake that you see people making?
Yeah, I would say a really easy win, that low-hanging fruit, is hitting those empathy cues. So whether you're dealing with intake or a current client who's having a hard time, just before you go to the solution, just throw in an empathy statement. I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm here for you. Right? You don't have to get lost in the stickiness of empathy and have a 5-hour conversation with them over coffee, but it's a quick thing that you can do to make them feel heard.
Right. And, this is another thing, again, internal, right? I mean, that's kind of out, we're interacting with the clients, but internally, what sort of, accountability strategies are in place to ensure that the intake staff is hitting those numbers? What sort of KPIs should attorneys be tracking without sort of feeling like Big Brother,
Well, we review calls and we score them. And that is the most effective accountability that I have noticed during the training period and ongoing maintenance.
Right.
Now, as far as rewarding good behavior, I like that too. I like carrots and sticks. But just like anything else, when you have carrots in place, you just have to make sure that the intake team is also accountable for signing up good cases, not just signing up a case because they could. That has to be thrown away later.
Right. When you think back on all of the law firm owners, all of the firms, all of the clients that you have been able to help throughout your career, when you think back on all of those people, all of those businesses you've been able to help, is there one that really stands out in your mind of an example that you really saw a positive outcome for or transformation in as a result of your help and guidance? And if so, can you share that story with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's more than one. Fortunately, I'm blessed in that way. But I just got an update from one of my favorite clients. I don't have favorites, and she let me know that they were 10 people stronger than they were when we had worked together. They had hired a full 10 people.
Wow.
And I have been watching them along the way, and I could see, like, every time they hired someone new, I could see it, like, on social media or whatever. So kind of tracking with that. So we worked together for 6 months, and we did both intake and case manager and attorney all together. And so that's the best results are the ones that can do all three, because you're staying aligned.
Right. And, I'm curious, like, everything that you're doing in your space, it's all about helping law firms grow, helping law firms with their intake, helping business owners. Everything that you're doing is coming from a place of helping. Is that drive to help, is that something that's just innate to your character, or is that something that you've been able to cultivate along the way throughout your career?
I would say what's really innate to my character is I love creating order out of chaos. I love coming on a situation that needs a lot of structure, and I love the moving parts. I just get a lot of satisfaction with that, and I'm wired that way. So
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the case.
And creating that order out of chaos, what is one mindset shift you wish that firm owners and intake leaders would make sort of this year to really sort of clear up some of that chaos that they're experiencing in their firms?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done on getting the focus off of yourself and onto the business. And this is in any business, law firms or not, that you have a whole bunch of individuals who are worried about their job, their life, their pay rate, whatever. And we live in a very individualized society. It's very natural where that's the way that it is. But what we work hard on through our processes is getting them to focus on the business. What's best for the business? How can you help the business? And then they become a lot more satisfied in the meantime, right? Because it's never satisfying to navel gaze, right? It's never to be thinking about yourself.
Now, I mean, from working in firms to now working with firms and coaching firm owners, are there any mistakes that you've made throughout your career and any lessons you've learned from those mistakes that you could share with our listeners so that, maybe they don't have to make those mistakes themselves. Maybe they can learn from someone else?
Absolutely. Yes. So one thing that I would say because I've made more than one mistake, but one thing that I would say overall is to plan really well, flush it all out, but then do not be overly rigid about how it gets executed.
Right.
So a lot of things can change in the course of an engagement, and maybe this goes well over here and this doesn't. You have to shift, you have to pivot. So if you have your frame like this, like really rigid, you're going to be really frustrated. You're going to take it out on your clients. So you have to be flexible and ready to move as the organization moves.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, this has been a really interesting, really in-depth conversation. And I thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, this has been fantastic. If anybody out there listening is a firm owner, could use your help, could use the help of the Level Up Law Firm Coaching, where can people find you?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Our website is leveluplawfirmcoaching.com. And my email is just Brooke, Brooke, at the same domain, leveluplawfirmcoaching.com. One day we're going to shorten it, but not today.
And one more time, if people wanted to find that script you mentioned earlier, where can people find that?
Yeah, they can email me and I will be happy to send it on over. And then maybe we can talk about some more things that we can do together.
Awesome. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by Leduc Entertainment. Leduc Entertainment for all your podcasting needs. Brooke, thank you so much again for joining us.
Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.